Rare coin collecting. Discover real value and history in every coin.
The 1925 S Lincoln wheat penny is a small but mighty relic from the Roaring Twenties. A coin that looks ordinary at first glance yet hides surprising scarcity and value. Minted nearly a century ago in San Francisco, it represents a time when America was booming with change, and every cent in your pocket had the power to tell a story. By 1925, the Lincoln cent, designed by Victor David Brenner, had already become a cornerstone of U.S. coinage. First struck in 1909 to honor the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, this was the first regular issue U.S. coin to feature a real person's portrait. Brenner's design, with Lincoln's dignified profile on the obverse and simple wheat stalks on the reverse, connected the nation's past with its modern ambitions. The obverse of the 1925 S penny shows Lincoln's right-facing bust surrounded by the inscriptions, "In God We Trust," at the top, "Liberty," on the left, and the date 1925 on the right. Just below the date sits the small S mint mark, identifying the San Francisco Mint. Despite being a small letter, that S can make all the difference to collectors. The reverse continues the classic wheat ears design, featuring two curved stalks of wheat framing the denomination, 1 cent. Above them reads, E pluribus unum, and between the stalks rests, United States of America. It's simple, balanced, and timeless, a design that remained in use until 1958, when the Lincoln Memorial reverse took its place. In 1925, the San Francisco Mint struck about 26,380,000 Lincoln cents, a respectable number at the time. However, the quality of striking at San Francisco in the mid-1920s was notoriously poor. Weak impressions, uneven luster, and soft details plagued production, meaning that fully struck, original mint state examples are far scarcer than the mintage might suggest. For most of its life in circulation, the 1925 S penny was treated like pocket change. Today, heavily worn examples in good to very fine condition are usually worth $1 to $5, depending on color and surface quality. But as you move up the grading scale, scarcity grows fast. In extremely fine, XF, condition, this coin typically brings $25 to $40. A lightly circulated about uncirculated, example with clean surfaces can easily fetch $75 to $150. Once you cross into uncirculated territory, the 1925 S transforms from a modest wheat cent into a semi-key collectible. In mint state 63, MS63 red-brown, prices often range from $300 to $450. Fully red examples with original luster and crisp strike details are exponentially rarer. At the MS64 red grade, collectors may pay $700 to $1,200, and at MS65 red, values can exceed $3,000 to $5,000, depending on color intensity and eye appeal. The record prices are astonishing. A PCGS-graded MS65 red 1925 S Lincoln cent once sold at auction for a jaw-dropping $54,625, proving how powerful the combination of rarity, color, and preservation can be in the world of numismatics. Even a single grade higher, MS66 red, would be considered nearly unobtainable, as very few examples exist with sharp details and full blazing color. Collectors often note that the 1925 S shows soft wheat lines and faded hair detail on Lincoln's portrait. That's why strike quality, not just surface color, plays a huge role in determining its value. A sharply struck example, even with some toning, will almost always outperform a weakly struck one with better color. As with many early Lincoln cents, errors and varieties from the 1925 S are possible but not common. Off-center strikes or die cracks can command $100 to $400, while exceptionally dramatic minting mistakes, like clipped planchets or broad strikes, can bring several $100s more. Historically, 1925 was a fascinating year. The United States was thriving economically in the post-war boom, jazz was sweeping across cities, and the automobile was transforming daily life. Yet in the midst of that prosperity, San Francisco's mint workers were still using aging dies and equipment, unknowingly creating one of the toughest Lincoln cents of the decade to find in pristine condition. Today, the 1925 S Lincoln wheat penny remains one of the key semi-scarce coins that every serious collector eventually seeks. It bridges the gap between the truly rare early S mints like 1909 SVDB and the more common later dates, offering a challenge that's both affordable in lower grades and elite in top condition. Every 1925 S Lincoln cent carries a piece of American heritage, a coin born during Roaring Progress, struck with imperfect tools, and aged through a century of change. Whether dull brown or blazing red, each one tells the story of how ordinary money can become extraordinary history. So next time you spot a 1925 S penny, take a moment to look closer at that tiny S. You might just be holding a coin that survived a century of commerce, and a treasure that reminds us why even a single cent can be priceless. The 1917 Lincoln wheat penny might look like just another old cent at first glance, but beneath its simple copper surface lies a story that captures a nation at war, a mint in transition, and a design that would endure for generations. Struck during the height of World War I, this coin carries both artistic beauty and historical weight, a reminder of America's resilience in a time of global uncertainty. The Lincoln cent, introduced in 1909, was designed by Victor David Brenner, a Lithuanian-born sculptor whose portrait of Abraham Lincoln was inspired by a Civil War-era photograph. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person, a bold departure from the allegorical figures that had dominated coinage for over a century. By 1917, Brenner's design had already become a national icon. The obverse features Lincoln's dignified right-facing portrait surrounded by the words, "In God we trust," above, "Liberty," to the left, and the date 1917 to the right. Beneath the date may appear a small D or S mint mark, identifying coins from Denver or San Francisco, while those from Philadelphia carry no mint mark. The reverse displays the familiar wheat ears design, two curved stalks framing the denomination, 1 cent, and the inscription, United States of America. At the top, the national motto, E pluribus unum, completes the composition. Simple yet powerful, the design symbolized both unity and prosperity during one of America's most challenging periods. The 1917 Lincoln cent was struck in 3 locations. Philadelphia, no mint mark, about 196,425,785 coins. Denver, D, roughly 55,120,000 coins. San Francisco, S, around 32,620,000 coins. Although these mintages seem high, time and circulation have taken their toll. Finding 1917 cents in pristine, fully red mint state condition is far more difficult than the raw numbers suggest. In well-circulated grades, a 1917 penny from Philadelphia typically sells for 50 cents to $2, while the 1917 D and 1917 S examples command a bit more, averaging $2 to $5 depending on condition. In extremely fine, XF, condition, values rise to $10 to $25, particularly for the scarcer San Francisco issue. When we move to mint state grades, the real excitement begins. The 1917 D and 1917 S both suffer from inconsistent strikes and color preservation, making fully red coins rare. An MS-63 red-brown example might bring $100 to $175, while a true red MS-64 can sell between $250 and $400. At the elite end, MS-65 red 1917D and 1917S cents have brought over $1,000 to $2,000 in recent auctions. The record prices are even more impressive. A stunning 1917 Lincoln cent, Philadelphia, graded MS-67 plus red by PCGS realized $12,650, while the best-known 1917S in MS-66 red fetched nearly $15,000. Collectors love the 1917 Lincoln cent not just for its scarcity in high grades but also for its role in numismatic history. This was one of the final early Lincoln cents struck before major die quality improvements at the mints in the 1920s. It also marks an important era when the U.S. Mint was under pressure to produce massive quantities of coinage to fund wartime economic needs. Many examples show die cracks, lamination errors, or slightly off-center strikes, quirks that give each coin unique character. Some error varieties, such as doubled dies or off-center strikes, can sell anywhere from $100 to $1,000, depending on clarity and condition. Even minor planche flaws can add collector appeal when they occur on early Lincoln dates like this. Beyond its physical features, the 1917 penny tells a story of America's transformation. The country had entered World War I just months earlier. Liberty bonds were being sold, industry was booming, and women were entering the workforce in record numbers. Amid these sweeping changes, everyday Americans still carried pennies like this one, tangible pieces of copper that linked them to Lincoln's enduring message of unity and perseverance. Today, more than 100 years later, the 1917 Lincoln wheat penny remains a popular find among collectors and treasure hunters. It's not impossibly rare, but its age, historical backdrop, and challenge in high-grade red condition make it a cornerstone coin for any serious Lincoln cent set. When you hold a 1917 penny in your hand, you're holding a century of American history, a coin that circulated during the First Global War, through the Roaring Twenties, and possibly into the Great Depression. Its design, unchanged since 1909, reminds us that values like faith, liberty, and trust endure even as the world changes around them. So, if you ever spot a 1917 Lincoln wheat penny, take a second look, especially if it glows with hints of original red luster. It may look small, but it carries a legacy as vast as the nation it represents, a humble copper tribute to Lincoln's spirit and the resilience of the American people. The 1922 Lincoln wheat penny might look like an ordinary cent at first glance, but in the world of coin collecting, this tiny piece of copper carries one of the most mysterious and valuable stories in U.S. numismatics. Struck only at the Denver Mint, the 1922 penny has fascinated collectors for decades, not just for its limited mintage, but for the legendary, no-D, variety that turned an ordinary cent into a true American treasure. To understand its importance, we need to go back to the early 1920s. The Lincoln cent, designed by Victor David Brenner in 1909, had already become a national symbol. With Abraham Lincoln's dignified portrait on the obverse and the famous wheat ears reverse, the design represented honesty, labor, and unity, values deeply tied to the American identity. By 1922, the U.S. Mint was still recovering from post-World War I production slowdowns. That year, due to maintenance and resource allocation, only the Denver Mint struck Lincoln cents. No coins were produced in Philadelphia or San Francisco. As a result, all 1922 pennies bear the D mint mark, or at least, they were supposed to. The obverse features Lincoln's right-facing bust, with, "In God We Trust," above, "Liberty," to the left, and the date 1922 to the right. The tiny D mint mark sits below the date, but due to overused dies and minting fatigue, some coins were struck so weakly that the D vanished completely, giving rise to the now famous 1922 no-D Lincoln cent. The reverse carries the classic wheat ears design, simple and elegant, with 1 cent in the center, United States of America, below, and E pluribus unum along the top. On many of the weakly struck 1922 coins, the reverse also shows softness, especially on the lettering and wheat stalks, helping experts identify authentic, no-D, varieties. In total, the Denver Mint struck approximately 7,160,000 Lincoln cents in 1922, a relatively low mintage compared to other years. Because of die fatigue, improper maintenance, and striking pressure issues, the quality of production varied drastically. Some dies were polished so heavily that the mint mark disappeared completely, creating one of the most sought-after error varieties in American coinage. For the typical 1922 D cent, values start modestly. In good to fine condition, these coins sell for $1 to $5. In extremely fine, XF, or about uncirculated, O, grades, prices rise to $25 to $75, depending on color and surface quality. However, the real star of the show is the 1922 no-D weak reverse and the 1922 no-D strong reverse varieties. The strong reverse type, where the reverse details are sharply struck, even though the obverse lacks the mint mark, is far rarer and more desirable. In very fine, VF, condition, an authentic 1922 no-D strong reverse can sell for $500 to $800. In extremely fine, XF, the value climbs to $1,500 to $2,500. About uncirculated, O, examples often bring $4,000 to $6,000, and fully mint state pieces are true treasures. At auction, the 1922 no-D cent has achieved record-breaking prices. A PCGS graded MS65 red 1922 no-D strong reverse sold for an astounding $90,000, while high-end brown or red-brown examples frequently exceed $20,000 to $40,000, depending on strike clarity and color. Collectors must be careful, though. Many counterfeits and altered coins exist. Some regular 1922D cents have had their mint marks removed or smoothed out to imitate the no-D variety. Genuine pieces always display certain diagnostic features, such as a distinctive die crack on the obverse and a strongly defined reverse with sharp lettering. Beyond its value, the 1922 penny captures a unique moment in U.S. mint history. It represents a year when one mint bore the entire burden of production, and the imperfections that resulted from overworked dies accidentally created one of the hobby's most famous rarities. For collectors, it's a coin that perfectly blends human error, historical context, and numismatic intrigue. The coin also serves as a bridge between eras, from the early post-war economy of the 1920s to the Great Depression that would follow less than a decade later. These pennies circulated through a nation on the rise, yet every mistruck or weakly minted example became a silent witness to the mint's challenges and America's evolving industrial story. Today, whether found in a collection, a dealer's case, or by sheer luck in an old jar of wheat pennies, the 1922 Lincoln cent remains one of the most talked about coins in U.S. history. Ordinary examples are affordable and fun to collect, but those rare, no-D varieties transform into six-figure treasures. So, the next time you sift through a handful of old wheat pennies, don't dismiss a 1922 too quickly. Take a closer look at that tiny spot under the date. If there's no D, and the reverse strike is strong and crisp, you might be holding a piece of minting history worth far more than a single cent, a true American rarity born from imperfection. The 1924 D Lincoln wheat penny might look like an ordinary old cent, but for collectors, it's a hidden challenge. A small copper coin that reveals how mint quality, history, and survival rates can make all the difference between pocket change and a $1,000 treasure. This coin was struck at the Denver Mint in 1924, during an era of American recovery and ambition. The nation had just stepped out of the shadows of World War I, roaring into the 1920s with new industries, automobiles, and growth. Yet, at the same time, the U.S. Mint faced technical and quality challenges, especially in Denver, where dies often wore down faster, and planche quality varied. That mix created one of the more inconsistent and underrated issues of the entire Lincoln Wheat series. The 1924 D belongs to the iconic Lincoln Cent series, designed by Victor David Brenner in 1909 to honor the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth. It was the first regular issue U.S. coin to feature a real person, not a symbolic figure, marking a revolutionary moment in coinage history. On the obverse, the coin proudly bears Lincoln's right-facing portrait with the inscriptions, "In God We Trust," above, "Liberty," to the left, and the date 1924 to the right. Beneath the date lies the all-important D mint mark, the hallmark of the Denver Mint. Turn it over, and you see the familiar wheat ears reverse, with two graceful stalks curving along each side, framing the words, 1 cent, and United States of America. At the top sits, E pluribus unum, a Latin phrase meaning, out of many, one. It's a design collectors never tire of, classic, symbolic, and deeply American. Now, here's where rarity meets reality. The 1924 D wheat penny had a relatively low mintage, about 2,520,000 coins. A fraction compared to the tens of millions struck at Philadelphia that same year. That alone puts it in semi-key territory. But it's not just the mintage that makes it valuable, it's the quality. The Denver Mint in the early 1920s was notorious for producing coins with weak strikes. On this issue, Lincoln's beard, cheek, and coat lines are often soft or flat, and the reverse wheat stalks can appear blurry. That's why sharp, well-struck examples are so rare, and why collectors pay premium prices for them. In good, G4, or very good, VG8, condition, these coins usually trade for $10 to $25, depending on eye appeal. In fine, F12, prices rise to around $35 to $60, and in very fine, VF20, they can reach $100 or more. When you move into extremely fine, XF40, expect $150 to $250. But the real excitement starts when you get to mint state grades, coins that never entered circulation. In MS-60 brown, they can sell for $400 to $600. In MS-63 red brown, prices reach $800 to $1,200. True red examples, where the coin still glows with original mint luster, are incredibly scarce. An MS-65 red example can easily fetch $4,000 to $6,000, and record-setting coins have gone even higher. According to PCGS auction records, one of the finest known 1924D Lincoln Wheat pennies, graded MS-65 red, sold for an astonishing $10,350. Its brilliant copper tone, crisp strike, and perfect surfaces made it one of the most sought-after Denver issues of the decade. What makes this coin even more fascinating is how many were lost to time. During the 1920s, the penny had tremendous buying power, enough to buy a newspaper, candy, or small goods. These coins circulated heavily through the Great Depression years, meaning most 1924Ds were worn down to near smoothness long before collectors started saving them. Even lightly circulated examples can tell a story. Imagine one of these coins being spent by a railroad worker, a shop clerk, or a schoolchild in the 1920s Midwest, then resurfacing a century later in a roll hunt or family collection. Each piece carries history in its scratches and toning. For collectors today, the 1924D remains a semi-key date, not as famous as the 1909 S VDB or 1914D, but challenging enough to demand respect. It's a must-have for completing a Lincoln Wheat set and a test of patience for those seeking it in high mint state red. In summary, the 1924D Lincoln Wheat penny is a coin that rewards knowledge and attention to detail. While low-grade pieces are modestly priced, high-grade or red examples are extremely rare and can command four-figure prices. The mintage was small, the strike was weak, and survival rates in pristine condition are painfully low, a perfect formula for long-term collector appeal. So, the next time you come across a 1924 penny, check carefully under the date. If you see that small D, take a closer look. You might just be holding one of the hidden gems of the wheat penny era, a tiny relic of Denver's minting legacy and a true symbol of how history, rarity, and condition can turn 1 cent into a collector's prize.